Connect now. Okay, very good. Live on Facebook and recording. All right, I'm gonna start letting people into the chat. Okay, got a few people coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, let's join it. And Aquani to all of our family members, extended family members that are coming into the chat right now. We'll be getting started momentarily. But thank you for being here for the kickoff event for the 11th Annual New England Native American Culture Week. Okay, very good. All right. And let's go here. Let's see. Let's control. And wait first. Okay.
I'm on a Zoom call. I'm on a Zoom presentation. I'm on a Zoom presentation.
Where's it at? Share. That's not what I wanted to do. Share. More options. I just. Isaac's a very nice young man. Share your story. Share. Copy link. Okay. I'm just going to share this on my page and tag everyone. Let them know we're getting started. Sorry. All right. I think we are good to go. I post it. And excellent. And we are right about 7:29. Let me just see if there's any other participants in the chat room. There is. Very good. We'll let them in as well. Excellent. And we're right at 7:29, so we're right up on the time frame. Once again, just want to welcome everyone. We'll be getting started in just a moment. But this is the 11th Annual New England Native American Culture Week. My name is Raymond Two Hawks Watson. I am CEO and founder of the Providence Cultural Equity Initiative, which is a nonprofit based in Providence, Rhode Island, whose mission is to steward and ambassador Rhode Island's cultural sector and economy. The 11th Annual New England Native American Culture Week is an annual weeks-long series of educational and cultural events specific to the New England Native American cultures. We started this event back in 11 years. So what's that? 2010 with our good friends over at Rhode Island College, Ms. Jen Giroux and former President Nancy Cariulo. And the goal of it was that we found that most times when people spoke about American Indian culture, Native American culture, They primarily had concepts of the cultures that were out in the plains areas. And those are absolutely beautiful cultures. We honor and respect their heritage and their experience in these lands and their beautiful culture. But we felt that it was important that being New England Native Americans, American Indians, however you choose to identify, that we tell our own stories and share our own cultures here with those who might not be aware of who we are, where we come from, our history, our narrative, our stories, our culture. So we started this 11 years ago, and it's been going strong. And tonight we are so excited to be starting our discussion off our weeks-long series of events, which I'll tell you a little bit about that before we get into our event this evening and I introduce our very distinguished and honored guest. But we're starting tonight with a event called White Fawn Speaks, and we're going to learn a little bit about Clan Mother Shoran White Fawn Piper of the Golden Hill Paugusett. So it's going to be a really excellent dialogue. Very respected tribal nation in the New England region, and so excited and honored to have the chief with us here tonight. So Akwani, Chief, very good to have you here tonight, and so excited to be hearing your thoughts that you'll share with us this evening. Secondly, on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m., in collaboration with the American Indian Law Students Association at Roger Williams University School of Law, we will host the RWU Are on Indian Land panel discussion. I myself honored to be a panelist on that, along with Dr. Taino Palermo, who is the president of the American Indian Law Students Association at Roger Williams University School of Law, and with Sagamore William Windsor Thunder Guy from the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. And we'll be talking a little bit about the history of the lands that the Bristol campus of Roger Williams University is located on, a little bit about the history of the Pokanoket people, what we're doing with the American Indian Law Students Association, and I'll be giving a little bit more background on how all of this fantastic stuff around culture and cultural diversity ties into the work that we do with the Providence Cultural Equity Initiative. And then on Thursday, to close out our week, we will have a fantastic panel discussion entitled First Contact Nations and the Doctrine of Discovery. We've got some really distinguished guests for that evening. Sachem Wampamiquim Wampatuck of the Matakeesit, Massachusetts tribe. Chief Lanzado Langley of the Savannah River Yuchi will be on as well. And from our very own Roger Williams University School of Law, Professor James Diamond, who is in our audience today. Very good to have you here, Professor Diamond. And that will be a discussion talking about the sort of impacts and relationships and experiences of First Contact Nations, engaging with the doctrine of discovery, getting a little bit more background on what the legal theory is behind that, and hoping to make that just a very robust conversation. So you should have the flyer. I'm assuming that if you're here tonight, you saw the flyer. You can check out the event on Facebook as well, 11th Annual New England Native American Culture Week. And I am so excited now to turn our attention over to, as I mentioned earlier, a very distinguished guest this evening. Her proper title is Clan Mother, but I refer to her as Chief. But Clan Mother Shoran White Fawn Piper of the Golden Hill Paugusett. We are so honored to have you here this evening, Chief. Thank you for being here for this event.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Say go, everybody.
Absolutely. So Chief, I really just wanted to use our time this evening to just take an opportunity to share about you and your people, because I don't think when people think about New England, they think about the diversity of nations that are here. It seems like a small area, but there's Nipmucks over here, there's Pequots over there, there's Mohegans, there's Paugussets, there's Narragansetts, there's Pokanokets, there's Wamps, and then there's all of these different, bands and clans and all of that sort of stuff underneath that. So as I mentioned, our goal and our aim with New England Native American Culture Week is to raise awareness about the nations of New England. So why don't we first start with just learning a little bit more about you, your background, where you come from, and then perhaps we can transition into some discussion about the traditional structure and ancestral lands of the Golden Hill Paugusett.
Okay. I'm the tribal leader, Clan Mother. My position is higher than the chief. We are the oldest continuing reservation since 1659. My father was Chief Big Eagle. He was a hereditary chief. My grandmother, Chief Rising Star, she was the hereditary chief. She appointed my father. I was actually looked upon in grammar school, which is actually in documents in the Connecticut State Capitol, Washington, D.C., BIA. I was raised at my father's knee at a very, very, very young age, so I learned a lot. I learned everything you could possibly think of with all of that. We have 2 reservations here in Connecticut. We have one in Trumbull and we have one in Colchester. We are also on Facebook. It's a page that you can like, so feel free to type in, the Golden Hill Paugusett Indian Reservation. They could look over a few things, ask questions that they may have after even tonight's event. I do want to comment on the thing that you were saying. As we are a state recognized tribe, there would be on the map a total of about 18 tribes in Connecticut. But per government, a lot of those tribes were wiped out and they only recognize 5, including the Golden Hill Paugusett. And it's sad to see that there was, about 18 tribes on the map in the state that I live in. There are Native Americans everywhere. I talk to people and I tell them, there's 2,500 alone in New Haven, and they'll say, what? They're shocked to know that. These are absentee tribes. You may not hear their name. You may not see their tribal card, their tribal robe, but their blood, they still keep going. They still keep their native traditions and native ways still going. They won't, not live a different type of way. They still stay going their Native American way. They stay on that red road, even though they were stripped of it.
Thank you very much, Chief. And that is fantastic context once again for New England. And that's why we do these discussions. There are so many indigenous folks in these areas that just because of historical racism and those sorts of systems, really just got stripped of their identity, made to identify as other things. And it was really about taking of the land and doing away with the people who are rightful stewards of it. So thank you very much for sharing that, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to talk a little bit about the traditional structure and lands, the ancestral lands of the Paugusett people. You mentioned that your position is higher than the chief. Could you explain a little bit about that, and then talk a little bit about the fact that women sachem were not anything out of the ordinary in our area? That throughout history they were war chiefs. They were So please share a little bit about that as well.
The women are the backbone. So that explains why a lot of people say, why are there, women medicine, spiritualists, medicine men and women, when it should be a man, not the women. You see the women chiefs, you see the male chiefs. Now, in tribes, you have the clan mother, who is the highest position, which is kind of like the overseer, the last vote, the last word, the last signature. You do a lot of the teachings, a lot of the healings. We keep all the traditional ways still going. We still continue on with all of our traditional ways. In our tribe, we connect intertribal with other tribes. We always are together, throughout the years. But the women out here, is the backbone. So the women, the medicines, like I said, the teachings and the language, the dancing, the arts and crafts. Yes, there are many men who make their own regalia and make their own, native wampum and dance staffs, but it's also the women who put the medicine and they put the prayers in and they do the teachings. And like I said, the women, are the backbone. As for our lands, we have land claims, just like every other tribe. By 16, towns, and more, that is Golden Hill Paugusett land. We have them on documents, we have them on the maps, we have them in the records. Our tribe continues, like I said, we have bylaws, we have constitution, and we still follow the old ways. We do not change anything up. We're still going the traditional ways. We still keep the name out there and alive that we are still here. We have not died off. And with everyone continuing to have babies year after year throughout the year. You know, even when our old ones are no longer here and the elders are dying off, we still have future and future and future generations of 150, you know, members. And, you know, everybody's put on the tribal roll. When those babies are born, once a year, we add them immediately. They get their tribal card. We let everybody know again where our, you know, tribe land is. But then again, you know, that's a hard fight, you know, because you won't receive all of your land claims, you know, all 100%. And that's just how it is, no matter how hard and how long you continue to fight. But we still like to keep the traditionals going. We attend the powwows. We still cook in the native foods. You know, we go to schools and youth groups and presentations from pre-K up to college age. We have people who come to the reservation for field trips, learning the history. So this is a constant everyday thing, besides a lot of my family members and our tribe who still have to work every day, go to school every day, you know, still, you know, the elders, everybody's retiring, but still in all, we still keep our name out there and we're still going, you know, to our ceremonies, our traditions, you know, like I said, still cooking, still making arts and crafts every day, still attending the powwow. So we still keep on going in our structure.
Capitalist Chief, thank you very much for sharing. So what was first contact with Euro-colonial society like for your people?
That was around the Pequot War, of course, but William Sherman, where our bloodline comes from, in the state of Connecticut, 1825, they had documented him and put him on file of the Native American, first Native American of our people. Paugusett, they put that in the records in 1825. The reservation, you know, Trumbull, for that matter. But that time it was around, you know, of course, like I said, the Pequot War time for, you know, 1637 for, you know, the first time our tribe with the colonialists, so.
And how was it initially? I know when we talk about Narragansett people here in Rhode Island, they often talk about Roger Williams and how he was a friend of the Indians and things of that nature. But there are other peoples who, from immediate first contact, it was an adversarial sort of relationship. So how would you characterize your initial contacts with Europeans, your people's initial contacts?
Well, hundreds were killed. Families were separated, sold, bought. Just the, you know, the brutal of, like I said, the killings and the rape, you know, and being sold, all the families are separated. You kind of do some wheeling and dealing, because being Native American Indian, we come out as a very nice person. We're offering what we have to show you what we learned, what our medicines are. You come to us and your wife might be sick, your child might be sick. So, you know, of course, you have your medicine women and men who are going to heal you, help you out. You know, you're traveling, you may not have a blanket, it's wintertime, you may need extra firewood. So in that case, when we offer and there's wheeling and dealing, everything again is taking from the tribes, and you get the bad part that comes in. And whatever you sign at the time, we didn't know how to read like that. We didn't know how to write. We would just put a symbol. We would just put a marking. That was our signature. So when that happens and you don't know what you're signing, you know, later on down the road, you basically you're screwed. You just, you know, our people got screwed. And, you know, it's very heartbreaking to see that even now in 2020, things are still being taken away from all Native American tribes all around the world. It doesn't matter if you're federally recognized. It doesn't matter if you're state recognized. There's still a struggle. People are still struggling, and people are still trying to fight for what is rightfully theirs. And it just continues to still be, you know, taken away. There was a lot of refugees, a lot of captives, like I said back then, you know, with the colonists during the Pequot War. The homes were sold, you know, like I said, slavery, you know, all of that.
Chief, that's very interesting, because you mentioned the Pequot War, but I don't often hear the Paugusett mentioned when they talk about the Pequot War. And of course, you all were impacted by that just as much as any other nation in that area, correct?
Yeah, it was all in Connecticut, the Hartford area, and then it goes all the way up to Massachusetts. Yeah, the whole, like East Coast, starting like in the whole Hartford area, surrounding area, 1635, 36. Yeah, that was
All
like
right.
when it broke out, like
Mm-hmm.
37.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for my year is wrong. But yeah, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Mohegans helped out, Narragassetts,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there was many, but yeah.
Absolutely. And that was, I always share when I talk about the sort of New England region and kind of the downfall in general of the tribes here, I always attribute it to all of the infighting that was going on, that we were too busy trying to get over on each other to
Correct.
see what was happening to us
Correct.
collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a really good transition over to a little bit of conversation about the King Philip's War. So we know that this is one of, if not the bloodiest war per capita on U.S. soil since European contact. What was the role of and the impact of the King Philip's War on the Paugusett people in the 1675-76 area time frame?
Well, the tribes that were throughout Connecticut, that only a few reservations, basically I would say maybe towards the end, from being told from my father, grandmother, and other elders, a lot of them had broken up in Connecticut, including our tribe. A lot of them escaped, obviously, increasing, what was happening and the pressure. A lot of people had to learn now to adapt. A lot of the tribes or Indians had to learn how to adapt back then, to the white ways. Um, Newtown and New Milford had became like the points for our tribe following the war. Um, Maybe about 100 wigwams for a reservation. But again, a lot of them escaped. A lot of them had fled, and it was very hard on a lot of people. So following that, and that was mostly for us, was Newtown area and New Milford.
I'm just typing in the chat here, Chief, that if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them and we'll get to it after the discussion. But very interested. So as a result of the King Philip's War, were any of your people, we know that a lot of Poconokas and Narragansetts were sold off into slavery. I imagine that probably started with your people around the Pequot Wars, I would imagine. But was that also a repercussion or a result in the King Philip's War as well?
Yes, and there were some that we took in that were not Paugussetts, that we took in that may have been in grave danger for whatever case, whether if it was a woman that was pregnant, whether it was kids, but we had taken in people from other tribes too, and helped whatever way we can. Claude Clayton Smith, who's an author, he wrote Stratford Devil. It's a book, and it talks about Golden Hill. It talks about Pequot, talks about the war. It talks about us being in Stratford, a powwow. It talks about Goody Bassett, which was, again, back then, it was Massachusetts, Salem, the colonists, the whites. It was, that point of time. But he wrote a book of the history and the story. And actually, the child, Goody Bassett, who was not Native American, who was white, ended up befriending the Pequot. And like I said, we took in people as well. And, she was back and forth between our land and our reservation. And then her parents didn't want her no more because they started to see that she was gifted. And again, like back then, it was a Salem witch trials. So there's a lot, with that. But the book is called The Stratford Devil from Claude Clayton Smith.
Thank you very much, Chief. And could you just provide, I actually meant to touch on this earlier, but it is my understanding, and I would defer to your expertise in the matter, but that our Pequot family were not traditionally from this region, that they at some point moved into this region. Is that a correct understanding from your experience?
Well, Eastern Pequot, we're the first oldest continuing reservation from 1659, and they're the second behind us with their old continuing, reservation.
Okay.
I want to say 1682, 83. they're right behind us. The
Okay,
oldest still, they're right behind us. So,
very good.
hmm
And what was your people's relationship with the Pequots in that region? Let's say prior to European contact.
as far as I know, I just know there was a lot of riffraff with the Mohawks. So
Okay.
that's,
Yes.
back then I didn't hear any, even today, Golden Hill and Pequot, we're great friends.
Okay, very good.
We're there for each other. Yep, we're there for
Yes.
each other. We work together. We're, in good standing. We're good friends. But back in the day, when you had the Indian and Indians fighting over
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
I only heard of the Mohawks. So,
Yes. I've
so we have
heard
some.
similar stories. Similar
Yeah,
stories. And much
yeah.
respect to our Mohawk brothers and sisters as well.
Yes, I have friends, and my brother Moonface Bear, he was really big with the Mohawks and on the
Mhm.
Mohawks, and he abided by some of them. But yeah, I have friends that are Mohawks. We're really good friends, good standing. Those were our
Yeah.
ancestor times. We can
Absolutely.
change things now. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so Chief, I want to just talk a little bit about, and I know that this was something that went on with, the New England tribes have really been dealing with this the longest in terms of the United States as we know it today. Well, what was, and you touched base on it a little bit with the reservations and things of that nature. Well, what were some of the the things that your people went through as colonists tried to assimilate and kind of erase your existence? What were some of the challenges you faced, and also what were some of the strategies that your people utilized to kind of combat those things? Because there were so many different things that were going on. I know with my people, they went as far as to illegally detribalize us in violation of federal law to push this narrative that there were no more Indians and the lands were theirs. So could you share a little bit about your people's experience during that sort of assimilation and erasure period that you could argue we're still kind of fighting with today?
we at one point, like other tribes who are still state recognized, we were at one point federally recognized, and you get that 60 to 90-day preliminary. They always find some little nudge or something to pull it back. We meet all criteria that they request of, plus more. But again, it comes down to politics and money. My father, Chief Bigigo, fought with blood, sweat, and tears. There's also a book called Quarter Acre Heartache, again, from Claude Clayton Smith, and it talks about the struggle. William Sherman, and there's a journal section in that book where he put what he did every single day for the tribe and, for his people and for the reservation. My father fought not only for the Paugussetts, but he also fought for other tribes to achieve and to be where they are at today. My father fought for us to be placed on the map as well. Just fighting for our existence, recognizing us, acknowledging who we were, our bloodline, all of the proof that we have, back to where it was, a quill pen with the ink, and, our journals and our books that our ancestors and everybody kept are so old and fragile, they fall apart. You need like a magnifier glass. So our record keeping and books go way back then. It's still trying to fight even for like today, fighting for who you are, the healthcare, the schooling, grants. We're 501. Everybody just having to be able to use your own tribal ID card, which you can't no more. There was a point in time where on Facebook, you could not put your Native American Indian name. It wasn't accepted. And I remember there was a big petition going on for that. You had to put a regular name. You get people who look upon you like, oh, you makes jokes. Oh, you're going to take my land. You're going to take my home. I'm going to have to go get title insurance. And it's not that way. We're not going to knock on your door and say, get out. That's really not how it works. And no matter how many times you explain how it works, some people are still frightened. Some people will support you. You will have friends that are non-natives who understand your struggle and who will shed tears with you. But again, it's our language. We have future generations that we have to have, accomplish things, our goals, our plans for that, our future generation and their future generation are not going to struggle with healthcare and language and their history and them being able to use a tribal ID card and being able to walk around wearing their native jewelry every day and not being bullied. And, you know, the boys that are going to school with long hair and then coming home because they don't want it. They want a haircut because everybody says they look like a girl. And it's a struggle. It's a fight. Some of us, our government names are our Native American name. How could you switch that? I have some of my family members, when they would tell people their names, they would just say it's Joe, or they would say Jose, you know, instead of actually saying, you know, Kicking Bear or Little Eagle, or, you know, like mine is White Fawn, and, you know, in our language is Swapatukwe. So those struggles, we have come a long way. We have accomplished, you know, a great deal, but there's still so much to be done, and there's still such a long fight. And like I said, it comes down to money and politics. And, you know, being our tribe that has succeeded and having documents to show proof for so long, they always find some little tiny itty bitty crumb to say, oh, no, this isn't right. We have to, you know, stop all that. You apply for medical now for Husky and State, they want to know what tribe you're affiliated with. You know, they want to know if you're receiving IHS, which is Indian Healthcare Services. They, a couple people in our tribe, you know, the thing was food stamps, you know, and then they want to know your tribal affiliation. Well, what does that matter? You know, we're still poor. We're still struggling. So, you know.
All right, very good.
It's a long fight, but we're still going.
And of course, Chief, and we honor you. And once again, thank you. For those who may have come in after, we are interviewing Clan Mother Shoran White Fawn Piper of the Golden Hill Paugusett. She's just sharing a little about her people, the oldest continuing reservation in U.S. history. Was that correct, Chief, that you mentioned earlier?
In here in Connecticut, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
very good. So very historic
the oldest
people.
Continuing, yeah.
Very historic people, and very honored to have you here today. I just have a couple more questions, Chief, and then we'll look to our chat. And everyone who's in the audience, please feel free, if you have any questions that you want to ask the Chief, put them in the chat, and I'll make sure to ask them. But you've mentioned him a little bit. If you could just talk a little bit more about your father, Chief Big Eagle, kind of what his journey was. I know he got appointed to the position by his mother, who was the chief. So just a little bit about his journey and his spirit, because he's a very well-respected chief in this area. And I definitely think that more people across the nation need to know about the chiefs from our area that have continued the fight. And not just for, like you said, not just for this region, but for indigenous folks all across the world. We've definitely kept up that fight and kept it going strong here in New England. So could you share a little bit more specifically about your father for those who may not be aware or may not know much about him?
Well, he was called the legend. He traveled all over the world, in the United States, outside the United States. When he passed away in 2008, everybody from all over the country were saying that it came across the radio, whether it was Puerto Rico, whether it was China, whether it was Holland. People were like, you know, saying, and in state, there was a few politicians who put his picture up, who spoke of him. He was a very, very, very well-known person. Everybody knew who he was. He was very, very highly powerful medicine man, very, very gifted. You couldn't get none past him. He could sit here and have a conversation with you and hear what you were saying at the same time and would tell you. He was never scared, never scared. And when I say he wasn't scared, he'd go in the state capitol with a gun and pull that out at somebody at their desk. He was never scared. He walked in the most worstest neighborhoods at any time, day or night. Wasn't afraid. Everybody knew him, bowed their head. Hey, Mr. Piper. He was very, very well known. Like I said, he traveled everywhere. He spoke about our tribe. He spoke about his family, his people, all, you know, his ancestors, you know, working hard and continuing on with what his mom, my grandmother, had done and our ancestors. He helped other tribes out to get to where they were. He fought for so many issues and subjects. it was more than just, you know, federal recognition. He worked for ABCD for housing that was for non-Native American Indians. He worked on a grant. He was on PTAs. He worked with so many children and agencies, you know, group homes. It was more than just Native American Indian issues. He did it all. He worked with DCF. He did a lot of foster care. He eventually adopted some of them, you know, because they weren't going to have homes. He took in a lot of my nieces and nephews, you know, because times were hard. A lot of our tribal members, you know, it's hard to live on reservations. It's hard to live in certain states. So they had to veer off to other areas for better jobs, better benefits, better living for them and their family. Um, it was a struggle, but he worked hard. He was a very strong man all the way up until he passed away. His mind was sharp, 100%. He did a whole lot for, like I said, our tribe, other tribes, and non-tribal. He worked with El Grasso. Oh yeah, he did a lot. He worked with so many, everybody knows him. Everybody knows him. He had a temper too. A lot of people remember that. They remember that as well. He had a temper. Yeah, he could foresee too. He would know if the tribe was going to get something or not. And there's a video that is posted. He's in the video and he's explaining that basically they just don't care. And that's basically how it is, how it was for, you know, our tribe and our people. They just didn't care. And the video circulating on YouTube, it's on our tribe page, on Facebook, it's all over social media. A lot of people shared it. But it was an interview with all tribes, you know, many, many moons ago. And they visited all the tribes in Connecticut. They did interviews with the tribal leaders. And he basically makes a point that they just don't care. That's just how it is. They just don't care.
Well, much respect to Chief Big Eagle. May he rest in peace. And we honor the fact that his spirit continues on and that you continue to carry it on as well, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I've got one more question, and then I'll turn to the comments that have been posted in the chat. I also shared a article from the Boston Globe. I believe it's the obituary for your father, for those who may want to know a little bit more about the chief. So you can check that out and Google him as well. But like I said, very well respected chief here in the New England region. You've touched base on it throughout the conversation, and I always like to kind of leave questions that I ask on a more positive note, because I think we get enough of being presented in the media as like downtrodden and stepped on and forgotten, and you know, and our people have our struggles, absolutely, but I think our people are very resilient. I think our people, you know, are survivors because we've been here this long despite everything that has been done to us, and that we remain proud and we remain, you know, in Niski Tumpawag, we are still here. So if you could, Chief, just talk a little bit about the Golden Hill today, because I know I purchased some of your fantastic sage. Thank you very much. Just share about some of the things that Golden Hill are up to today, that people could find out more about, could potentially support, initiatives, programs you have going on, just some things that are contemporary today to the Golden Hill people, so that those of us today, we like to say that we present living culture. So we don't want them to look at you as just the people that were at the Pequot Wars or just the people who got placed onto a reservation after their lands were taken, but you're alive today. Like you said, you work, you celebrate, you do all of those things. So what are some of those things you can share with our audience so that people leave here with a good understanding of how they can engage with the Golden Hill if they want to?
I will phrase it as my family, because I don't want to say my people, our people, or Paugusett. It's, you know, tribe. We're all blood. We're all family. My family still, you know, the entire tribe, we're strong. You know, strength comes from within. And today we are still going strong. We may not have what is rightfully ours, but we don't give up. We're proud of who we are. We know where we come from, and we still continue to carry that smile. We still continue to, you know, there are ceremonies that are public, non-public, very private with tribes. We still go to powwows. Everybody's got their own, you know, craft name, you know, their own business name for selling their, you know, real Native American handmade craft items. We do the socials. We have intertribal meetings with other tribes. And like I said, again, some of the ceremonies are not for public. They are very, very private because we don't sell our traditions. Like I said, we do the traveling to different schools, people coming to the reservation, visiting throughout the year. We still are continuing on with all of that. But like I said, we're still strong. We're still strong. And, you know, we're not died off. So, you know, like I said, we may not have what we have, but we're still proud of who we are. And we still continue to do a lot of that. And we're still in touch with each other. We still, you know, get together. And on the tribe's page, we have a private one, which is only for our tribe. The public one, we post up there everything that's for, you know, public. We let them know about, you know, if it's our tribe, if it's other tribes, that they're being invited to. So if they were on the page, they can, you know, have access to that where they will see, you know, updates, keeping up what the tribe is doing, keeping up what other tribes are doing, and invites. There's also invites there. If they don't have Facebook, we do have we'll just email you, or, you know, somebody will pass a message along to you if they have Facebook and you don't, and your family or your friend. So yeah, they can keep up with that way. Our website is still under construction. It was very, very, very old, but we're keeping it up right now through Facebook.
Very good, Chief. Very good. All right. That is the end of what I had. If you would honor us with some more of your time, Chief, I just asked the questions that were posed in the chat.
Okay.
And once again, we thank you for your time. So the first is from Mitush Tanipis, my good friend and fellow tribal member. He says, in your opinion, Chief, what is the most important thing for the urban Indian to do today?
Well, as for me, every day I wear my native jewelry. I keep my tribal card, ID in my wallet. So when I pull my license out, I pull that out as well. Mm-hmm. Even though it's not, you know, it may not be accepted or not, but I still continue to do it. Mm-hmm. I still let my children know the correct history. I correct somebody if I hear them. I'm not there for drama. I'm not there to argue or go back and forth, but I would just say, excuse me, if you don't mind, I overheard you talking. You know, let people know who I am, where I come from. Yes, I'm living on a reservation. Yes, I am your kid's school bus driver. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. We still do the everyday and yearly things that everyone else does. We celebrate holidays, or some of us, you know, celebrate, you know, we still eat the regular normal foods. We still go shopping. We still go to the mall, but we still let people know we don't hide our identity. Mm-hmm. I drive around, you know, blasting, you know, the Native American music, you know, Northern Cree or Native American hip hop music. And, you know, so, you know, my kids let their friends know and follow onto that. And we just keep that going. We just keep it out there in the open and keep showing people who we are. We don't hide that, you know, being at the times that you are now. Don't be afraid. Never be afraid. You know, and phrasing you, or, you know, if you think of yourself, don't think of yourself low either. You know, never think of yourself in a low way, you know, or call yourself, you know, urban Indian. You are a long-standing traditional ancestor of your ancestor. You know, all that continues. You have continued from your ancestors. So never be afraid to continue and show the world who you really are.
Very wise words, Chief. Thank you very much. We have a follow-up question as well, and then I see a couple of engagements on Facebook as well, so I'll ask from there too. The second question is, what do you feel is one thing that the USA could do to begin the reconciliation process?
A few years ago, the politicians wrote letters to Obama. And it was for federal recognition. And basically, long story short, the BIA in Washington, D.C. put a ruling in the book that if you applied for federal recognition, you could not apply again, that you had to let other tribes apply who haven't applied. And that's where they get you. That's like 500 tribes on the list. You know, this is public knowledge. That's, you know, every tribe in American society who have applied for federal recognition. What tribes haven't? So that's where they get you. So right now, we're working with our lawyers to get that ruling out of the books, so that we can continue on with our process for federal recognition. You know, I liked Obama at one point, until he went and he federally recognized the Hawaiians in Hawaii. And then I was like, that's it. Lost all respect for the man. Because you had all these other Native American Indians, you know, waiting for years. And, you know, I don't have nothing against, you know, Hawaiians or anything like that, but, you know, you kind of looked, you know, elsewhere and put everybody else on the back burner.
Very good, Chief. And this, I think, is a very good follow-up question to what you just shared. And this comes from Jeremy Campbell, who's a professor at Roger Williams University. Jeremy is actually a part of the Wuchi Wami Living Culture Collaborative that we put together to really work with the university on a fundamental level, including the School of Law, to really ground the initiatives, the sort of perspective that the university focuses on in its relationship with the indigenous communities that are right around it, because they're in these lands. Jeremy's question was, he said, first of all, thank you so much, Clan Mother. He'd love to know if the Paugusett are currently considering applying for federal status again, since the BIA revised its recognition criteria in 2015, or has the tribe moved in a different direction, one more in line with the many, many New England tribes that haven't received or are not seeking federal recognition?
No, we're still seeking. We're still seeking. Yep. Still seeking. Not going to stop. You know, we're going to still seek. Yep.
Okay. This comes from Professor Colleen Murphy, who I had the absolute honor of being in her civil procedure class last year. So very good to have you here, Professor Murphy. She says, Clan Mother, what do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of obtaining federal recognition?
Okay, that's a good question. Because a lot of people firsthand think because we're Native American, oh, you want to put a casino? No, let's stop right there. My family, nobody wants a casino. It is a dead-end business, whether it is tribal or non-tribal. My tribe, my family, we don't want the casino. There are many other things that we could do to bring profit in for our family and future generations and for the state itself and surrounding towns and areas. It's getting the federal recognition is our language, you know, speaking our language. It's our own health care. It's, you know, to be able to use our tribal ID. It's federal funding, you know, like I said, our health care, language, federal funding, and just being acknowledged of who we are. We're state recognized, which only comes to certain things like for gaming. We're only allowed to do 50-50 raffle. We're only allowed to have a bingo hall. We have our hunting, our fishing, our wildlife, you know, we can have that, you know, access and our license, you know, we could do all of that. And then just being recognized by the actual, just the state of Connecticut. But federal recognition, it comes with more to that. And then basically what's rightfully ours. So money right now for our land claims is going into a trust, which is supposed to be paid out to the tribe. But when you go to ask for the money, it's either $0 or there's only $8 and there's only $24, or they don't have no idea where the money went. Somebody took it and they can't track it. The casinos in Connecticut, I think it was every 25 cents of a dollar, they were putting into a trust for the state recognized tribes here in Connecticut. I don't know where that money is. That comes out all the time, every week, every day, every month, every year, and we don't receive that. So we're only state recognized, so they look down on that. Coming with federal recognition, there's a lot more to that.
All right, I just want to shift over to our fantastic audience that's engaging through Facebook, and Chief Red Spirit. Good to see you watching, Chief, from the Wabaquasit Nipmuc. He asked, and you touched on a little bit earlier, Chief, but why were you all put on a reservation before the 1675 King Philip's War? I know you shared it earlier, but would you mind just sharing that little bit of history again?
We were put in different spots, and the names of our tribe kept changing, of how outsiders had placed us, of how outsiders had called our tribal name, being corrected year after year. Where I'm at right now on the reservation, It was one big whole huge circle, you know, like all reservations are. And all these homeowners will tell you that they bought their home from the BIA when the BIA took it. So this whole circle here, you know, the streets are named Golden Hill, then you have streets that are Paugusett, you have streets that are Turkey Hill, then they called us Coram Hill. This was the outsiders just throwing a name at us. And we kept correcting year after year, year after year of who we were. So we were being placed from different areas from when our people would either have to run from one of our land that they settled in and have to escape and run to another set of land. So when it came down to the Trumbull Reservation, the fight only left us with a 1/4 acre and the neighbor's driveway. And then their home, which was stone wall, which was my dad's grandfather, they only gave us the driveway. And they will tell you that this whole area, they bought their homes when it was stolen from us, from the BIA. So, and then for Colchester, they said to get a grant and just buy another land to put your people on. So at first it was supposed to be Waterbury, and then it was Colchester, 116 acres. They just, grant money, and here, boom, here was a reservation, put the rest of your people on. And that's where it was. That's why there's a book called The 1/4 Acre Heartache, because it tells you about that fight. We're originated from Bridgeport with the Freemans. And it also talks about Sachem, the first Sachem landed on the Milford Beach, which is also the Milford area, which is also our land claims, with his child. And then, like I said, we spread out, and you know, and then Stratford, the Stratford Devil book, it explains what the Pequot and the Goody Bassett girl. So I hope that answers your question. These are good questions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm really, you know, happy to see that everybody's, you know, have questions or comments. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. We have another question from an Elise Marie. She says, is the Obama administration's help with non-federalized tribes helping or hurting? So when he was in office, do you feel his engagement with non-federalized tribes was helpful or hurtful?
We didn't accomplish anything, no matter how hard we try. And this is another thing too. A lot of people might not understand or see this. When the world is in chaos, like it is now, they don't want to hear from a tribe. They don't want to hear that you're applying or going to Congress with this, that, and the other, because the world is so chaotic right now and it's upside down, that they put you on the back burner, throw your paperwork in the basket, and it collects dust. They forget about you. And then when you bring it up, which like now, since COVID, I've been on a lot of Zoom meetings with Washington, D.C., you know, the political party, the Congress, with other tribes, because we're not receiving grant funding that is for state and federal that could help our people out in so many ways right now. You know, the elders, the healthcare, you know, the PPE, people out of work, you know, things like that. We have to come together and kind of just call each other up and what do you need kind of thing. Didn't get anywhere during Obama's administration. But again, when the world is chaotic, they have different departments, but it doesn't work out. Those departments still don't come through.
Yes, in Professor Diamond's class this year, we've just been kind of learning sort of the legal history and just the framework for how they view, you know, Indian folk when they deal with them. And I can see not only from personal experience and from learning in the class, but from your own experience and continuous experience, Chief. I would agree with you. A lot of times they just don't care. And I think Professor Diamond told me I might be the only person who's even more jaded than he might be about the situation. Because I always feel like even when they do something good, there's an ulterior motive or some other next step that they're thinking that we haven't thought about. When we catch up, like you shared, for example, you go and apply, they deny you. Even though you meet the criteria, and then when you come back, now they've got a rule. Oh, well, since it's not that you're not eligible, it's just that you already applied, so you have to wait. So they're not really saying no, they're just saying that now isn't the time. And what the Sagamore of the Poconokees always say is denial by delay, denial by delay. Well, hold on a second, and it just continues and continues.
And just to comment on something, even with the grants, federal funding, state funding, it doesn't really matter. Whatever grants you're applying for, we have to be kind of phrase it a different way. So if I was, because especially with Trump administration, they're kind of trying to stop a lot of the funding for a lot of the tribes. So if I was to write a grant out and say I would like to put my own Native American Indian statue somewhere, and that's why I'm applying for the grant, well, he's going to look at me like, but you just wanted all these statues down all over the world and you expect me to give. So if we phrase that a different way, you can receive the funding. A lot of the tribes who applied for funding during COVID for certain things and would not receive, you had to rephrase that in a grant to kind of, achieve those funds.
Yep. They probably want, because they just shared that memo a couple weeks ago about un-American teaching. So I'm sure they're not trying to fund anything that seems un-American, whatever that means.
Yep, a lot of tribes, a lot of Native Americans didn't even receive that stimulus funding.
Just one other comment that was in the comment section from Professor Diamond. He said casino anxieties when you were talking about how people, they're gonna put a casino there. You can't let the Indians get the casino because then they'll be drinking, and all of the craziness that goes on when you start to talk about those sorts of things. So
yeah, the casinos, you have Greenland, and I know some don't know this either, and maybe some that are watching might. When it comes to casinos, you have Greenlands and you have commercial. So Greenlands is Native American owned land. And then commercial is a non-Native American land. Till this day, there are open lawsuits from Trump that sued all the tribes in Connecticut because he was told no, that he couldn't put a casino in Connecticut, and said that none of us looked Native American Indian to him. In those cases, those lawsuits are still open. But when we have an agreement and a contract with your state officials, other people can't come in on green lands and put a casino, no matter how many people are discussing it and planning and talking. Now, if it was commercial, fine, anybody can buy a piece of land on commercial and, put a casino.
Well, when it comes to the Indians, no, there's some special rules, and you can't just do what everyone else can do. So
correct. And actually, the federal and the Gaming and Liquor Commission, they're the ones that got the last say-so to tell you yeah or no. So, yeah.
Very interested. We have another question on Facebook, Chief, is how long do you have to wait before you can reapply for federal recognition?
They used to have it where it was open yearly or it was every 6 months. They used to have a deadline on it when it would open and close pretty quickly. And right now, it's kind of just like frozen or just a dead end. And we're just trying to fight with the lawyers to get that ruling just out of the book so that we could get on with the proceedings.
And I think this next question is a really good follow-up to what you just stated. It's from JP, and he says, Honorable Clan Mother Shoran, what can we do as a people in Connecticut to support and push our elected officials to honor all Indigenous people in Connecticut?
Wow, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate. Thank you so much. Just writing letters. It was the same thing that our politicians had did. They just typed up a letter and sent it to Obama and, just made a decision. So basically it's just writing letters, just being friends of our tribe. If you come around or you come to the res, or if you come to one of our, public events, walk up to us, let us know who you are, you're in support, and just being friends of, the Golden Hill. But again, just writing letters to the political party and the state, Washington, just to support political party, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Chief, let me ask this just because it's kind of contemporary and on everyone's mind. How have you and your people been coping with the COVID situation that's going on? Has it been very impactful on your people? Are you utilizing traditional sort of remedies for anything, or have you just kind of been, what has been your experience with it?
I'm a mother of 2 Lance Corporal Marines. So some things they discuss, they could tell, some things they can't. But when you get a certain type of warning, you start to prepare a year before. We've had people just asking what we need. I ran across some grants, and by the time I went to apply, the funding was just out. I couldn't, get funding for certain things. PPE. There was a veteran. He was from Mohawk tribe. They were going to do masks for every veteran and their spouse. Traditional medicines, yes. Elderberry with zinc, cedar tea. We have a healing remedy. It's just a drop under the tongue that we make. Everything's with herbs. Everything is right here on the land that we pick. Make our own oils for the immune system, and just kind of checking on each other and seeing what everybody needs. But when you're Native American Indian and everybody makes their own regalia and you all got that sewing, you quickly start, sewing masks for everybody and stocking up on supplies and, hand sanitizer. But yeah, we do still the traditional ways. And every day, medicines. I've had people come contact the tribe's page on Facebook that were not from the tribe. And I had to whip up a lot of medicine orders that helped out a great deal of people, essential oils, all of it. So, it's hard. Some people are out of work, just like I said, we all help each other. Help each other.
Very good. Let me see. So we have another one from Facebook as well. It's from Janice Smith Bliss. Hi, Janice. How are you doing? She says, are you affiliated with the Connecticut Indian Affairs at all?
Yes. That's how I call it, as intertribal. Connecticut and Rhode Island Indian Council. NAHAC Council with the Indian Affairs Estate with, Edith. And like I said, it's intertribal. So it's all the tribes in Connecticut. We have NCAI, which that's like our own Native American Indian president, Fawn. And she's like the overseer. She handles like all tribes issues around the United States. But yes, for Connecticut, yes, always involved, always involved. And I'm not just involved on tribal issues as well. I'm on a lot of committees and councils that have to do with racism, the police brutality. That's, not just the Native Americans. I, partake and I help out the best way that I can. And other protests, at other meetings, rallies, anything of going on or support in other areas as well.
All right. And just before I get to our next question, we've got people in here. Antoinette Wills is saying that she misses you. And a Kimberly Castellini says, you're always helping. How can we help you in the tribe? So.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't even know they were watching. Oh,
yeah, we're out there, Chief. We're out there.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We have another question from Professor Diamond. He says, do the Paugussets engage in peacemaking or other traditional healing and wellness types of forums for dispute resolution?
Within our tribe or outside of the tribe?
Let's say within the tribe.
Oh, of course. Of course. We're there for each other. We're there for each other. We do help each other out. But phrase that again, because I didn't know if that was in the tribe or outside the tribe. Rephrase that question again.
So do the Paugussets engage in peacemaking or other traditional healing and wellness types of forums for dispute resolution? So if there's an issue going on between two people in the tribe.
Yes, we have a council. Yes. Council or, an elder, depending on if that's the grandmother of the person, if it's the aunt of the person. Yeah. Yes. Yes, we do.
I know we had an instance in our tribe where one of my clan members was just doing something he shouldn't have done. So after he got a talking to from me, he got to come before the whole council and get a talking to from them as well. So, but yeah, very, yes, absolutely.
My nephew is War Chief Quanah Kicking Bear Piper. So yeah, a war chief, that's also their position too, to help out with things. So yeah.
Yeah, Chief, would you just share, because I know I mentioned this to another gentleman we're doing some work with PCEI, and when I mentioned the war chief, he like kind of froze for a second. He was like, What is that? So just sharing a little bit about the traditional structure. I know you're a clan mother. What are some of the other leadership positions that would be in the Golden Hill Paugusett that would be traditional to be held?
You have council chief, you have hereditary chief, you have sub chief, you have firekeeper, you have the eldest council member. So that's basically it. Besides the war chief and clan mother, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to share that because just so that people understand the complexity and the diversity of the politics that go into Indian tribes. Like
Yeah.
it's all politics all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You didn't say this right at this moment, and we've always, so all of that's going on. But me, in a certain way, I appreciate it because it always reminds you that there's a standard that you're supposed to be adhering to and living up to. So
Right.
it can get on your nerves, but I think it's good for the spirit to, good. Oh, and it looks like your husband, Mr. Baez, is commenting in the comment section as well. He's thrown a few hearts in there as well, so I'm sure that he's happy to see you on here as well, sharing. So I don't know. I don't see any more questions. Why don't we do this, Chief? Are there any parting words? We've been on for about an hour now, and once again, Katapatush for your time. For sharing about your people, for keeping up the fight, for just everything that you continue to do on behalf of not just New England Indians, but on behalf of indigenous people in general. Because our story here in New England is very important. It's the first one. And it's the longest running. And I would say we're oftentimes the hardest hit because in other areas, at least they get the respect of being acknowledged as Indians. They might not like the Indians. They might think the Indians are just the worst thing ever, but at least they'll acknowledge them as being Indians. And around here, that's a fight on top of everything else that we're caught up in. So thank you for that. And any last thoughts, words you want to put out there, initiatives you want to share, just anything that's on your mind with our audience right now?
For all the males and females, strength comes from within. To remember that for everybody, whether you are native or non-native. As for just the females, always walk in peace and beauty. And as for the males, always walk in peace. That was something that my father said as growing up and taught to everybody. And I would always hear that. And that's how he would say that. And, he would say Ona, which is until we meet again. But I do want to send just lots of hugs and blessings to all of you tonight. I am greatly, happy and honored. I greatly appreciate it for all the wonderful questions, all the wonderful supporters and viewers. And this was a great night. I thank the chief for, inviting me on this. And, it's just been a wonderful. So just lots of hugs and many blessings to you all. Thank you all.
Absolutely, Chief. And we have a few comments as we close out. Thank you for continuing what's important. Thank you for sharing White Ford. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And thank you, Clan Mother, for your words and your work. To our fantastic audience, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence tonight and listening to these words of wisdom from the Clan Mother. I do just want to remind everyone that this is the 11th annual New England Native American Culture Week. This was our kickoff event, but we have another one Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. RWU are on Indian land. And then Thursday at 7 p.m. as well through Zoom. You can log in the same way. You can also find out about our Golden Hill family on Facebook. Type in Golden Hill Paugussets, and you will see the fantastic and dynamic Clan Mother White Fawn there doing what she does, keeping her people's legacy and heritage alive. And we are so honored here on the Providence Cultural Equity Initiative to have spent this time this evening. Chief Katapatush, thank you very much. Many blessings, and I'm sure that we will see each other probably along the powwow trail soon.
Yes, yes,
Thank
yes.
you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, Aquani Peach Ganache, and have a great night, everyone. We hope to see everyone on Wednesday at 3:30.
Ona.